parents, or potential parents, I should say at this point, they come into our admissions office and the question is kind of, really? Are you actually building this? Is Charterhouse really coming to West Africa? And yes, we are. It's happening.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the latest edition of our Avernus Education Podcast. Today, we are joined by Todd, founding head at Charterhouse, Lagos. And he's coming live from West Africa. So, John, welcome to the show, and I hope you can hear us loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Yes, greetings from Lagos.
So Charterhouse Lagos is the first British independent school in West Africa and part of the Charterhouse family of schools, one of the most prestigious British academic institutions. And it's great to have the opportunity to speak with you today, John. Thanks again. Charterhouse has a very rich history stretching more than 400 years. It must be such an exciting project embarking on setting up a new school, especially in the location where you're based. Are there any particular aspects of this Charterhouse tradition that you're looking forward to incorporating into the new school?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a privilege to work with Charterhouse. And when we were looking around, we talked to quite a number of schools. Many British independent schools, of course, have got students and alumni from Nigeria. So that in itself told us there was a big appetite, and particularly in the south of Nigeria with the Yoruba people, the appetite for education is very strong. And so we were very much looking for a school that was holistic, but had a very clear focus on academics. And Charterhouse, really fitted the bill. It's got a very fine academic pedigree, but they also follow so many other aspects of that you would expect from a holistic curriculum. And I guess another very powerful draw for us is actually the football tradition. Nigeria has a very strong individual player level, if you like, football tradition. The Super Eagles tend not to do so well. So that essence of sporting tradition, of the academic tradition, we're going to have a boarding school as well in our secondary school. And the boarding tradition is very strong at Charterhouse. And I think it's also important to say, everybody worries about what goes on in Nigeria. Is it real? Is it fake? And working with someone like Charterhouse gives us a real sense of credibility that we are a real academic institution. It's not just a badge we've borrowed.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds such an inspiring project as well as an ambitious and no doubt a challenging one as well. And Charterhouse's history, I can imagine, is going to play a big part in this new identity of the school that you're setting up. And you mentioned the parents there, John. What kind of students are going to be looking towards Charterhouse Lagos? Are they from all over the world, all over Africa, mainly from British families? I wonder if you could just give us a little sense of what kind of students will be attracted to the school.
Sure. I mean, in a sense, we started with a very wide view of what that would look like, and we've come down on a practical level to something much more local. And our thinking in terms of location is to start with Lagos State, and then stretching out to the surrounding areas, and then Nigeria and West Africa. I think one of the key challenges here is there really is nothing like this here. And for so many of our parents, they or potential parents, I should say at this point, they come into our admissions office and the question is kind of, really? Are you actually building this? Is Charterhouse really coming to West Africa? There are issues around land, around finance, and around access. And so one of the things we tried to do is work very hard just to convince people that, we are actually building a school here. I was stood ankle deep in the mud in it yesterday, and convincing parents that this is actually happening. This is the largest private sector investment in education in West Africa. For so long, parents have sent their kids overseas.
Sure. If
you wanted a really good British independent education, you had to go to the UK. What our research has shown us when we did our feasibility study is that more and more parents want their children to be closer to them. And what we're offering, in a sense, is that same quality of education, but it's only an hour away from your house, not a day's flight away. So, in terms of what it offers families, a very great deal. The type of family, the fees obviously are going to determine that it's going to be limited as to who can afford it. But we will be offering a significant number of scholarships, and anyone who applies will have to meet academic criteria. So it will not be a case of, if you can afford it, you can come.
Sure.
We've got clear values, we've got clear academic criteria, and students will have to meet those criteria because we will be an academically selective school.
And I can see absolutely that it's going to elevate Nigeria and maybe West Africa as a whole in global education. And as you were saying, very much kind of first of its kind, really.
I would say absolutely. There are good schools in Nigeria. Don't get me wrong. And I've worked at another school in Lagos in the past. The challenges around finance, around location and space mean that often these schools cannot offer the totality of the experience. So they can have good facilities around academics. Some of them have good sporting facilities. But to find a school then that has modern classrooms, we have a quadruple gym, we have a swimming pool. When it's open, we also have an 800-seat theatre, a library. We have so many exciting facilities that, frankly, are the kind of norm for an international school. But for all sorts of reasons, have not materialised before in one place. So in terms of that total package of facilities and the opportunities that offers to a student, nobody's been able to do it before. And I think that very much, it sets us apart, but still causes that sense of disbelief. Are you really going to do this? And yes, we are. It's happening.
It's very exciting to hear, and it's opening in phases. If I understand it rightly, is it sort of a particular range of ages that will kind of launch the school and particular facilities that will be part of that first phase?
Yeah, we decided that we would start with primary school because there are less challenges around facilities and there's less stress around academics. It's more adaptable. So we will start in 2024 with years 1 to 4 and then add year 5, year 6 and so on. So in 2028, when our second phase opens, we'll open our middle school, year 7 and boarding facilities. So to start with, we've got our primary school. It won't offer boarding. We will have classrooms, obviously, standard kind of classrooms. But I guess the way I look at it is classrooms on an international level that are light, that are airy, that are open, that are technologically connected. And again, that's a challenge here for most schools. We've got to provide our own power. We've got to provide our own water, sewage facilities, all of this. And so that's all part of our planning. We'll have facilities for STEAM, art, music, drama. We'll have a 25 metres pool. We'll have 2 gyms to start with, a medical centre. And I think, obviously, security can be a challenge here. We are working with some of the top security consultants in Nigeria, people that deal with oil and gas companies and banks. Our expatriate teachers will be housed on site. Obviously, 24-hour, 24/7 security in a variety of both physical, as well as cameras, lots of access control. So it's a very secure campus as well. And then there are all the support facilities to go around with that. When we come to phase 2, 2028, we will open more classrooms. And what we're doing is we are housing our students in the high school to begin with and just using different furniture, essentially. A classroom is a classroom. And who it works for just depends on what furniture you put in it. So we're housing our primary school in one wing of the high school. When we open our second phase, we'll have another wing for the middle school. But then we'll open some of our really big ticket facilities. We will have a triple gym with an NBA basketball court inside that can also be split. We'll then have a quadruple gym next to it with a fitness training room and dance studio. There's outdoors, there's a football field and a running track. And we've got plans to start a football academy pretty much from day one. So that's all very exciting. Phase 3, where we're looking 2028, we have an 800-seat theatre and performing arts centre. We have a library, and then we have purpose-built middle and primary school buildings with a second dining facility in the centre of those. So it's, I think I've covered everything. And then there's a phase 4. One of the things we've had to do, because the area is very low-lying, is pump a lot of sand. So we've had barges pumping sand and creating a lake, and we've raised our land up by about 3 or 4 metres. So phase 4 is a water sports centre, which will be in the lake that we've developed by pumping all this sand onto the land. Wow. So that's maybe 2030.
Goodness, I mean, very exciting. I'm excited just hearing about all of the plans, and I presume not without setbacks and challenges, as you've alluded to. And I was just wondering, because presumably it's the sort of first, a lot of the challenges you will be experiencing will be for the first time on a personal level, on a leadership level. You've obviously got vast experience and expertise in school leadership and so on. Are there any particular experiences that you've already had working in other parts of the world that you're able to directly draw upon, or is it very much just being nimble and agile, thinking on your feet with this new project?
Yeah, I guess in a sense it's a bit of both. The number of times that we've heard as a team, we don't do it that way here, or that's the first time we've been asked. So, for example, we're developing a new food and beverage concept at the moment, where we want the school food and the food opportunity to feel like a 5-star hotel. But nobody does that here. We want a parents' coffee shop, which is a bit like Starbucks, but nobody does that here. So we then have to draw on the experience from other countries, and also, I guess that perseverance. We are determined that our standards will not slip. we are determined to offer a 5-star experience in every aspect of the school's operation. And so setting those standards is really important, and ensuring that the staff understand that standards are everything, that reputation is everything. So there's a lot of, I guess, stickability. We know what we want. Probably the biggest challenge is it just takes longer to achieve it.
Yeah.
Simple, what should be relatively simple, something like recruitment. We've picked the person, we've gone through a rigorous process, but to get the number and the level of checks that we want in terms of safeguarding, in terms of references, in terms of financial checks, social media checks, we keep being told, but nobody else wants this. And we're saying, but this is our standard. This is what we require. This is the international standard that we're looking at, and we won't compromise. And if the individual doesn't want to do the checks, that's fine. Go work somewhere else, because this is the Charterhouse standard. And I think people are looking at it and saying, okay, we understand. This is what people aspire to here, but so often they just fall short and they don't worry about it. And we're saying that's not good enough. If you've got standards, you've got to stick to them. And particularly when it comes to things like recruitment, there are no shortcuts. It does mean adjusting timelines. It does mean pushing that bit harder. I think in the end, it will definitely raise standards in the industry. It will make people sit up and think, because if we can do it, so can they. And that's very much part of what we want to do, is bring every school here up to an international standard, is drive the quality issues. And we're very much committed to working with the state and the federal government to support these kind of things.
Absolutely. And just, I suppose, touching on that idea of, aspiring to great things, and a tricky question in a way, because it's projecting into the future, but just sort of interested in terms of, as the school grows and you get that first batch of sixth formers and of leavers, where do you think they'll kind of go to next? Where will their journey take them? I guess another way of asking that question is, what sort of pupil would you hope comes out of Charterhouse Lagos, and where might they then go?
Sure. Yeah, and I'm going to kind of answer it by going even a step beyond that, because one of the biggest issues at the moment is the brain drain and the talent drain at every level in society. And I think there was a story on the BBC the other week about nurses from Ghana coming to the UK. In Nigeria, the big challenge in education is teachers. And seeing, apparently life in the UK is rosy and they can get a lot more money. So there's been a big drain of teachers from Nigeria going over to the UK. So one of our starting points is that we want to build leaders of Nigeria for the future. We want to make sure that we instill in these students the desire to come back and make a difference. We don't want them, and I mean, some will, and they'll need to gain experience across the world, but we want them to see their future in their own country, particularly for our Nigerian students. Typically, Nigerian students head to the UK or the US. It used to be more towards the US. Now it's much more towards the UK, and I don't know this is the time to go into the reasons for that. British education is very highly valued in Nigeria, and as I said, particularly in the south, education is valued. So there's always been a powerful drive for UK universities, and some great support from the High Commission in Abuja and the Deputy High Commission here around what goes on with that. I guess on one level, what they see is institutions that offer first-class educational programs in lots of different areas. It's an education that you can trust. What we would hope our students take with them is, I think from a local level, a sense of respect is really very important. For us, reflecting our Charterhouse roots, the idea of kindness, of thoughtfulness, of being open-minded. But I think as well, for the future of Nigeria, we need students that are problem solvers. We need students that will stick at a problem and find a solution, often a local solution with Nigerian roots. So I think one of our challenges is going to be kind of squaring that circle of our students being in a very privileged environment, but also being exposed to the reality of their own country, challenges around electricity supply, water supply, poor communications, internet that's not particularly reliable. So basic services that don't work well, along with the volume of talent that's leaving the country and therefore weakens the whole infrastructure of Nigeria. And this is the richest country in Africa. It's the most populous country in Africa. The people here deserve better. And I really do believe that Nigerian students, the generation of the youth of today, can make that difference.
Thank you, John. And perhaps just a final question, sort of linking back to those talented youngsters and those young learners. I know that you've had experience of teaching and leading in the UK and China, for example. I suppose, just broadly speaking, if you were to give a young learner 3 pieces of advice, just in terms of how they can, in this day and age, and possibly in the context that you are in, how can they make the most out of their education? What would be your 3 top pieces of advice to anyone listening to this?
I mean, having said that we're an academic school, I would encourage students to think about holistic education, to think about their own well-being, and that school is not just about academics, and to take advantage of every opportunity. And somewhere like Charterhouse will offer so many different things. So seize your opportunities, because through that you get to know yourself. You get to know more about who you are and how you can excel. I think I would say, think about the future, set yourself a target, but be flexible within that. But make it your target. And still so much here you do hear, my mum or dad wants me to be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. Whatever you do in your future has got to come from inside. It's got to be what you want to be. And so have a sense of your own future. And I think probably a key thing here is be realistic, be patient, but never give up. This country, this nation will change, will grow, will develop, and it needs these young people coming through to make that difference. So the opportunities awaiting young people in Nigeria are just enormous. If they have the patience, if they have that level of stickability to come back and try, I believe there is an amazing future here for them.
John, that's fantastic advice. John Todd, the founding head at Charterhouse Lagos, thank you so much for joining us today on this Avernus Education Podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.